Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello my friends and welcome to another weekly wrap up where I'm so excited to go over all the books that I read in the last week with you guys. First up, we have a few little announcements and fun things to go over. If you don't care about those, you can skip right to the books. So, and by announcements, I mean just like my weekly catch-up stuff. So first off, I know I read this book last week, but I got my special edition in and I had to show it off. So this is the special edition Feathers from the Sky by Jess Wisecup. I am going to get the original cover as well because it's so pretty, but I also want like a hardcover of it, so I don't know. I can't imagine that a book box won't try to scoop her up eventually, but this just released. It's a vampire hunter romance, and I gave it 4.5 stars last week. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for you guys to get it. And yeah, this is the pretty copy. There are, I think, just a couple left on her Etsy that are this edition. Otherwise, you can also pre-order a signed copy of the paperback on her Etsy or just get it on Amazon if you want. But like, oh my God, it's so pretty. Let me show you the internal piece. Like, this is Gwen's page. And let's see, where's a Roman one? And here's Romans. These are so cool. I love it. It's gorgeous. Good job, Jess. Also, as always, got to show off what I was working on for my Etsy shop. And I just have some more like cowboy Western designs that were new. I do have some spooky / fall themed ones coming soon, but you know, I always love cowboys and I still had some of this like horsey fabric. So this one has like just a herd of horses. This one is some of the boots. This one is bears. I actually love this bears. And then this one is some horses like on the grasslands and stuff like that. So those are all available. As always, there's the code, the Book Refuge 10 for 10% off. And then I do still have some of the cute princess designs and also some fun just like floral patterns are up there right now. So check those out. I'm hoping to, by the first or second week in September, I'll have some of those like fall / like spooky designs up. But until then, there's still some really fun stuff going on. So make sure you follow the link to my Etsy shop, look around, and if nothing else, go ahead and follow the shop or follow your favorite designs to know when I post more. Then we do have a new channel member to welcome. So thank you so much, Lunel, for joining my channel. It means so much to me that you'd support me that way. Thank you to all my channel members and Patreon and patrons, because I literally couldn't do this without you guys. I'm already like starting to stress about taxes. And it's not even September, but just like my plan for like prepaying taxes this year just didn't happen because I just had to like hold on, you know what I mean? So I get nervous, but you know what? The Lord provides, and it's worked out last year. It'll work out this year, but it is stressful. It's stressful, y'all. Okay, for sure. All right, let's go ahead and get into the books that we're going to chat about. Thankfully, and I say thankfully, we don't have as many to talk about this time. And there were a lot of really good high quality reads, but we do have 10 books to talk about, and 3 of them were rereads, so it should go pretty quickly getting through some of these. So yeah, let's go with one of my most anticipated reads of the fall, which was Selena. This is book 3 in the Bellamy Sisters series, and oh, I was so excited for this one. This is actually a pretty slow burn, which is something that isn't the usual for SM La Violette or Minerva Spencer. Usually her burns happen a little bit quicker than this one was, but in this case, it really worked for me. So this one has Selena, who she is the prettiest / most beautiful of the Bellamy sisters. So in the beginning of this book, and if you've read the other 2 books in the series, you'll know that she was sent to town. Her and Hyacinth were sent to stay with one of their aunts or something to try to find a husband to save the family from ruination. And what Selena doesn't know at the beginning of this book is that Phoebe's already gotten married. The family money troubles are basically over. And then Hyacinth has just gotten married. Like, that, like, crosses over with the beginning of this. Because if you read Hyacinth, you know that Hyacinth's husband. He had actually, like, courted Selena for a little bit in the beginning. And also, that Duke's heir, who I think was his, like, nephew or a cousin. I don't know how he was. I think it was a nephew or a cousin. I think he was a cousin, had also been, like, courting Selena, and he's trouble. And so now that, like, Hyacinth has gotten married, like, the family troubles are really over, because he's even more wealthy than Phoebe's husband. He's a duke proper. He's not just a made man. He is generational wealth we're talking about. But Selena doesn't know that in the beginning. And she ends up kind of on a trip with this with the Duke's cousin, and he's trying to force her to marry him. It is a way to, like, blackmail the Duke. And so that's how this begins, is her foolishly going for a drive with him and ending up on her way to Scotland. She's being taken away to Gretna Green, and along the way she gets intercepted by Lord Fowler, who I know a lot of people thought that she was actually going to end up with Lord Fowler because we'd seen him a little bit in previous ones, but that is not who's meant for Selena at all. And when these two men are, like, arguing over her, she decides to make a run for it. So she actually steals some of their money. She steals their coats which have their money and their weapons in them, and she books it out of town. And she ends up in this small little town where she overhears that there is a marquis. Yes, a reclusive marquis who needs a new housekeeper. And she gets it in her head that she would be a good housekeeper because she's helped run the household since, like, her mother wasn't great at it. But she talks her way into this job, and it turns out that this marquis is a recluse because he was in a carriage accident a little over a year ago where he lost his wife and unborn child, and he's blind as well. And he stays in his rooms all day. He doesn't take care of himself. He wanders the halls at night, and really his people are, like, at their wits' end with him. And he's kind of, you know, not only has he been just, it's been difficult to keep housekeepers, but he's so angry and, like, lost in himself that he's really, like, been derelict in a lot of his duties as well. And he has a younger brother who's actually a monk and, like, lives far away, but he never reached out to him because he didn't want him to know about what happened because they didn't get along very well. And Selena just barges in on this, and she sees that he is neglecting his tenants and his people, and there's a lot of people that count on him. And it really kind of triggers her a little bit because that's what she saw her father do. And her father did it, like, because he's selfish, and instead of taking care of his people, he was always about trying to keep money for himself. But this Marquis, Caius, he's really doing it from pain and from just, he's spiraling. And he has definitely had some suicidal thoughts. There's some really powerful scenes about the fact that Selena discovers he has, like, a loaded pistol beside his bed all the time, and that's not for safety, we'll say. So he's definitely someone who needs some light in his life. And though he's very, like, upset with Selena, and here's the thing that I know could put some people off, like, Selena does tell, like, a lot of lies. And there are lies that you know are going to come crumbling down. Like, she is able to get a reference by writing to Hyacinth and having Hyacinth pretend that she'd worked for her before. So she gives her a reference so she's able to keep this job. But, like, we know she can't sustain this lie. So that can be frustrating in some aspects where we're like, girl, now's the time to come clean. Come clean now. Come clean now. Because what this book does become is it does become a marriage of convenience that they're kind of forced into, because it does get discovered who she is. And so she's not a widowed housekeeper. She is the daughter of a peer and the now sister-in-law to a very powerful man. So now we're going to be forced into a marriage here that we wouldn't have been if maybe she hadn't lied so much. But in classic Minerva Spencer way, I just absolutely loved her characters. I think they're so complex. I think she is able to show just the depth and complexity so well. And again, this is one of the slowest burns I've read by this author, and I was riveted the whole way. It has those aspects of, you know, a disability romance where the hero is blind in a time where the author, she has a note in the back of like how isolating blindness would be, especially in this time when like Braille wasn't readily accessible. There weren't like tools to help you. There weren't like seeing eye dogs. There weren't people who understood this. They didn't know whether he was blind forever or just for now. There was nothing. And so, you know, he's in complete darkness, not only like physically, but just he's completely cut off from the world. He's never been able to read anything again or do any of the things he loved to do. So it makes sense that he would be depressed. But Selena really comes at him. I mean, not like she does come at him strongly, but she also comes at him with some compassion of like, it doesn't have to be like this. You know, like you have money. You can make this easier for yourself if you're willing to. There are people who are blind or disabled who have no hope of a good life, because their circumstances don't allow it, and you do, and you're wasting it. In fact, you're willing to give up at a moment's notice, you know. And so there's a very powerful scene for me, like when she confronts him with that. And of course he's angry and he's like, you get out. And she's like, give me 30 days. Give me 30 days. And if the things that I have tried don't help you, if you don't feel more hope than you felt before, then I'll go on my way. So I talked about this too long, but I don't care. I loved this so much. I've loved this whole series, and I honestly want to like revisit it. I really want to start it over again because of how the stories overlap. I really want to do that. But the next one will be Aurelia, and she's actually the oldest sister, and she's an artist. So I'm very excited to read that one. Because the way that it is, like Aurelia, Selena, and Hyacinth, they're the three oldest, and then Phoebe and Kate and Dottie, those are the three younger ones. So I'm very excited to read Aurelia's because she's an artist, and she's kind of said goodbye to her family and is like, I'm not dealing with this drama, and has went off. So very excited for her book for sure. All right, I talked about that for a long time, but the next few will be easy to talk about because they're rereads, so we won't spend much time on them. I reread The Bully by Sophie Lark. I annotated this for one of my patrons. Hi, Daniela. You're amazing. What I will say was cool is that this, of course, is my original copy. Beautifully signed. I'm actually super careful with the cover of this one because it's been opened so many times, but this one's signed by Sophie. And she also had marked her favorite part of it, which I honestly missed when I was going through this reread. But anyway, so I was transferring my notes from this one to the other copy of the book, which I don't know where it is right now, that I'll be sending to Daniela. And what was cool was seeing the difference in the artwork, because even in the original ones, Sophie had artwork in these. I don't remember who, I wonder if it says in the front of this. I don't think that it does, because she doesn't have a title page in this one. But in the original, she did have artwork in these that was done by someone, not Lena. And they were pretty cool. They were pretty cool artwork. But seeing the stuff that Lena added in was really amazing. And I love anytime I revisit this story. It's actually been quite a while, and I have to hold myself back from doing a full Sophie reread of everything. But what's also cool is this is one of my favorite books of hers. All right, this is in my top three books of hers. Love it. But even so, her writing has grown so much, right? This was much more blunt instrument work, and it was good. It was good. Some of the best I've read. She just gets right to the point. She doesn't waste time with over explaining things. You have to be kind of smart. You have to be able to pick it up. But also when I revisit it, it is still she has improved so much. So unlike some authors where when you read their earlier stuff, you can just really, which again, this isn't her earliest. This is definitely mid to even newer stuff. But even from The Bully, which was 2 years ago, to where she's writing now, she's improved and changed so much, which is amazing. So yeah, this was still a 6-star read. We know it. This is a 4 on the spice scale. And just a reminder of some of the fun, spicy stuff in this, because I had forgotten. This one actually has butt plugs, anal. It has collaring in here. It has a tiny bit of pet play, for real. I was remembering, I was like, this is where some of the seeds of minx came from, was in this. And there also was squirting and spanking that happened in this. So this book is really when she really went for it with some of the spicy times, and I love it. It makes me so happy. Then I also reread Last Light, and I have 2 books that I annotated with this time. This is the beautiful hardcover copies of the series. I just love them so much, although I do love the originals too. But this is a post-apocalyptic age gap. This is Travis and Lane, and they are traveling together to try to get to a place where they think some people from their town are. Are they going to Fort Worth or no, not Fort Worth, but they're trying to go to a fort where they believe the military's kept it safe, and they run into dangers along the way. And this book was the book that started my like apocalypse fascination. And it's funny, I was on some reading sprints for a little bit last night on Tiff's channel, and during the first block they were talking about horror romance and stuff like that. And well, I don't really love that, and I don't think this completely fits into it, because this is a type of apocalypse where like there isn't zombies, it was just a natural event that wiped out society. There are those elements of like, you don't know what's going to happen, or any person could be bad, any person could be trying to do something to you. But the way Claire Kent writes this stuff, it's so cozy, and I stand by that. This whole Kindled series is so cozy, and it just gives me this form of comfort that I can't fully articulate. But it's the very best to me of like a forced proximity, because it's just these 2 against the world, and eventually their dog. It's just them against the world of like, you know, finding food, finding safe places to stay, right? There's only one bed a lot of the times because it's safest for them to be in the same room, in the same bed, instead of separated where, you know, where it'd be easier to isolate them or attack them. So I respect Claire Kent so much and the stuff she does. And we have another book by this author coming up shortly. But there's just something about her writing. It's so good. It's why I will never stop shouting about her. I'm so glad she continues to write books. And yeah, I just love it. So loved revisiting that for my patrons. Then I read an arc of The Good Girl by Nikki Sloan. And this one will be coming out next week. This is the 5th book, the 5th book in the Nashville Neighborhood series. So I know a lot of people are going to love this. This is basically an erotic new adult romance. And I would say it's new adult, even though they're getting a little bit like older than that, but really kind of for the themes, because this is a virgin romance, which you wouldn't be surprised by The Good Girl, and the bad boy kind of redemption arc story of him getting the girl and him also helping her experience sex. This is also best friend's little sister or brother's best friend, and it definitely has those forbidden situations to it going on. Now, I enjoyed this quite a bit. I really love Nikki Sloan's writing. Like, I'm just immediately sucked in, and it goes really quickly. And I think that this was a great story. Like, I really do. I gave it 4 stars, and I'm putting that up front because it didn't have that extra oomph that I really like. Even the frat boy, which I honestly didn't think I would love as much as it did, like based on them both being in college and based on how they were acting and everything. But it just had something like unique about it that made it sparkle within the series. But this one, it felt like a lot of retreading, and very much like a mirrored one, right? And, you know, all of the relationships in this one have been like secret, forbidden relationships for some reason, right? That's what's happening in this neighborhood. It's, you know, it's got all these different taboo things happening behind each door, you know? But the thing that was difficult for me is it just felt too much of an echo of previous books. And there's something you can do with that echo to change it and make it better, which I think is what is like usually cool if that happens. Like, I kind of want to point it to how like Praise and Mercy kind of have this echo, right? Where that one is a forbidden relationship and this one, you know, and Mercy is as well. And this one kind of has that, except for the fact that the person who freaks out about this forbidden relationship is the brother in this case. Like, we'll just say, because this is best friend's brother, and he's very much like, stay away from my sister. And that is what takes them a while for their relationship to even start, because we see them in in a past time where it's very clear they're attracted to each other. And because the brother is like, you're a man-ho, stay away from my little sister, which again, that's not unrealistic. That's going to happen in a lot of stories. But from then to like now, like he's went through a lot of stuff, right? Like this is the, you know, that's the hero Colin from book 4. And like he does porn and his family kicked him out for doing that. And he faces a lot of judgment for what he does for work and everything. And that doesn't mean he doesn't get to be like upset that like a secret relationship is kept, but he's the reason their relationship had to be secret. And then when he finds out, to feel the, I don't know, his reaction to finding out and the ultimatum that he throws down was so like counter character to what I saw from the frat boy that I didn't believe that it should have played out that way. I just didn't see that. And I loved how much growth we had seen from Preston, right? Because as a reminder, Preston is the son from the doctor. He's the ex-boyfriend to Cassidy and the son to, I can't remember that hero's name, but from that. And then, yeah, Sydney is the sister of Colin, who their family is very strict. And now that Colin's been kicked out of the house, really like all of their focus is on her. She wants to be a chef. She has done a lot of like as much training as she could like on her own, but she wants to go to school for that. And her parents don't want her to. They want her to do what they want her to do. And again, their grip has tightened even more because Colin has basically been disowned by them and he's filming porn. And like, again, I can't say that, like, I don't know. I don't fully love that the parents are completely vilified for that, because whether or not I feel that like how I feel about porn, I can't say that I'd want my kid to be doing it, because I think it is a risky and like dangerous profession to be in for a lot of reasons. I respect sex workers, doesn't take away my respect for them, but do I want my child to be doing it? Probably not. Even if I respect their right to do it. Would I disown them for it? No. But I feel like the parents are vilified so much that when we have a bit of a redemption for the parents, I'm kind of like, well, why do we even care about the parents? Because you've made them look like shit the whole time. And now we're supposed to believe that like we're warming up to them. You know what I mean? And I just wish we had made the parents a bit more sympathetic in Colin's book and then not such enemies in this book. I just don't think it was balanced very well, because we didn't completely cut our parents off by the end of this. Like, we don't do that because Sydney loves them. And I'm like, but why? If they were so horrible to Colin, if they're so horrible to you now, why do we want to keep them? Anyway, continuing on, I'm rambling more about this than I want, because at the end of the day, right, this is an erotic romance that fits in the Nashville neighborhood. People are going to read it. They're going to like the spicy stuff that happens in it. But I expect more from Nikki Sloan, because honestly, 3 out of the 5 books in this series have really moved me and been really great. And I know that you can do erotic romance and still say something. And I feel like we were building to it. And then with the like third act conflict in this one, we threw it all away. And I don't like when that happens. I like us to have grown, especially because this is an interconnected series too. I expected Colin to react better than he did. I just really did, because I loved Colin. I loved the frat boy. I thought Colin was great. And so for him to act how he does in here, it felt like, and I said this in like some of my updates for the book, I was like, I feel like we character assassinated a previous hero. Like he was already the hero of a book and you character assassinated him. And not everyone will feel as dramatic as me, but I did. I felt like we assassinated Colin's character and we didn't need to do that. But whatever. So yeah, I gave that one 4 stars. It is a 4 on the spice scale. And as regards to spicy things, like honestly, it didn't do too many overly spicy things, because this was like teaching a virgin stuff. So there was some things in front of a mirror. There was a lot of like hidden stuff, like, oh, if you're not quiet, someone's gonna hear. So there wasn't anything like honestly overly exciting about this one. So there we go. All right. Then let's talk about another reread I did, because I have another one I have to rant about, so let's do that. I reread Shielded Wrongs by Adelaide Forrest. This was also annotated for a patron, and I love this. I had reread book 3 not too long ago for someone as well, and yeah, this one is book 4, and it just reminded me how much I want this series to be finished. That's why it's hard for me to revisit this series, because I get so excited, because like the next couple is set up right at the end of this. And then like there's still like a last couple that we haven't been able to read because Adelaide has been writing as Harper L. Woods, and those books are doing so well for her that obviously she's going to keep writing those. But I'll say this again, I feel kind of like abandoned, not only for this series, but 2 other series that she was writing as Adelaide, they just were stopped while she could write Harper L. Woods. But again, I'll say it, authors don't owe us their books. It's fine. This was still wonderful to reread. I should say what it's about in case you don't know. This one is about Sadie, and she's friends with some of our other ladies who have now like married into this mafia family. And Enzo ends up getting assigned to protect her because now the women are so well protected by their men, and Sadie, who she runs her father's gym. It's like I think it's an MMA gym or whatever, but she runs it with her dad. She's kind of like out in the open. And so when there's an attack attempt made on her, which number one, she's able to defend herself really well because she actually teaches women self-defense. She still is a little unprepared for someone who's there to like really, really hurt her. So I thought that was a good reminder of like, just because you're like trained in self-defense, you know, how will you react when something's actually happening to you? Because no matter how much you train, like when you're training self-defense, the other person isn't actually trying to hurt you when you're practicing. But anyway, and so then she ends up getting scooped up, and Enzo is the one assigned to her, and Mateo tells him don't fuck her, and Enzo's like, oh, Mateo, you can't tell me not to do that, but I will protect her because she is mine. And so Enzo claims her. As they do. And Sadie, she could be into Enzo. She definitely doesn't resist him as much as some of the other ladies do because she thinks he's hot as well. We actually have a Latina heroine in this one, which I really, really enjoyed. She's so fiery, and like her family was so great. I love that about her so much. But she more is like a commitment phobic person, so she's into getting down with him. She's not planning anything long-term with Enzo, and Enzo's like, no, like I'm locking you down. So there's still a lot of push and pull with that. So this one was a lot of fun, and I loved revisiting it. It was still a 4-star read. It's a 4.5 on the spice scale. Now, this is why I'm glad I reread this, because it just reminded me that this one needs to be in some of my rec videos for spicy things, because this one has anal, it has ropes and bondage, it has knife play, spanking, and even more, like lots of rough fun things in this one. So I always forget the stuff that Adelaide puts in some of her books. It's so great. Okay, now let's talk about the one that I have to rant about. Oh my god. So I read The Monster by L.J. Shen. So earlier this year I read The Villain. This one was picked for me by a patron. Now L.J. Shen is an author that I used to read. Like, honestly, I think it was very early my booktube career, maybe even, I mean, I think I was already making booktube, but it was a long, long time ago in my brain. And I haven't read her since. I wasn't loving what I was reading, and then there was drama with L.J. Shen. I bring this up every time I bring her up, but my point being, I was willing to give her another shot because one was picked by a patron and I liked it. And I had been treated well earlier this year when I gave Rena Kent another try, and I have been happy with what I've been reading from Rena Kent. I've been enjoying it a lot. Can't wait for the next book in the series to come out this week. But with L.J. Shen, I ended up getting the next 2 books in this series, The Monster and the Rake, in one of the Audible sales they had, because I love the audiobook production on these. It was great. I will say for that, there's some great narrators, and it was good. And they were only like $5 in a sale, so I snagged them. And The Monster kind of pushed me back to everything I don't like about L.J. Shen. Number 1, the hero is mean. He's mean. We have a heroine who wants him. His name is Sam. He is the like adopted son of the characters from Sparrow. So I think it's like Sparrow and Tony or whatever their names are, which I had read, but I honestly don't even remember it because it was so long ago. I can't. And he's kind of like a mafia underboss / like boss right now, but he also does some work for the heroine's family. And he has been paid to stay away from her But they've always had this crazy connection. And so it's one of those where he's mean to her to keep her at arm's length. But it doesn't work because this girl is a masochist and she likes him to treat her like shit. I mean, maybe not really, but that's how it felt to me. It felt to me like she wanted him to treat her like shit because she would get hot for him even when he's saying mean things to her. And even when he's ignoring her, she's still getting hot for him. Now, the heroine is a doctor, but she actually is working for this underground clinic where they help with assisted suicides, and there's a whole reason, there's her whole trauma for why that's a thing, and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, it was a weird track to take, but whatever. These are dark romance, so that's fine. And then there's a bit of information that Sam finds out about how, what is the heroine's name even? Aisling. About how Aisling's father had actually like fucked over his mother, and he wants revenge against him, and so he decides to go for that. And it doesn't matter if Aisling likes him or he likes her, he's going to take down her father. But the things that he does to try to take down her parents go too far. Like, they lead to the mother attempting to unalive herself, which the mother already had mental health issues and has struggled with those, and the things that Sam does cause that to escalate, and she does an attempt in unaliving, and we never fully like blame that on Sam, but like it is his fault. The things that he did led to that woman feeling like she had no hope. Now again, this woman, she's not the healthiest mentally, and not just because like, oh, mental health, which I take seriously. She also is a narcissist and has some other things wrapped up that just make it worse. But that doesn't mean that it was just okay that Sam does what he does to do that. But he wants revenge. And because it's LJ Shen, he's going to go all the way to the edge to do it. Now, Aisling also has brothers who I believe her brothers we've already had. We at least had one of the brother stories because he was the hero from the villain, or the villain from the villain. And we get to see her friends all like having babies, and I don't know. So this became like kind of a secret relationship one, but also she was kind of his like mistress too, because he's like, I'm not committing to you. I don't know. It was a huge mess. There were so many twists and turns in this that you think it would have kept me interested. But honestly, every time they were having sex, it was like angry sex, or I'm going to punish you with it sex. Or it was, I'm going to give you this, so hopefully you'll want to stay with me sex. And it just was icky. Like, I ended up skipping a lot of sex scenes by the end because I didn't like him touching her. And that's never a good thing. That's never a good thing. So this one spiraled very out of control for me. He did have a pretty extensive grovel, although a lot of his grovel was him just saying, stop it, you're with me now. And she'd be like, no, you can't just demand me to be with you. Like, that time has passed. So there was a lot of that. But honestly, if I didn't have the audiobook for it, and if I didn't want to rant about it a little bit, I probably would have stopped. Also, I still do have the last audiobook for The Rake, which I am interested in that heroine. Damn it, because I'm interested in her. But I also can't return that audiobook anymore because of how long that it's been, so I have no choice. And I will probably read that one eventually, some other day. When I just can't decide on something, I'll start it. But I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. I did round it to a 3, I think. Like, I didn't round it down because of it. But I've shared this just, I think, in last week's. Like, I'm over mean heroes. And that's part of it too, is like this series and this like part of LJ Shen is mean heroes. They're mean. They're not just obsessive or possessive or demanding or like I'm in charge of you, so do this. They purposely try to hurt the person so they won't like them. It's like an extreme version of negging. And I'm just like, you're an asshole. So what's redeemable? What's wrong with this heroine that she likes you? Because the way you treat her and the things you say, but then you want to fuck her pussy real good and she just lets you and is coming all over you because of it. And just, to me, it feels degrading to women that like, we're getting wet when he walks in the room when the last time he like said he hates us and doesn't want to be with us. Like, I don't get it. I mean, I used to at one point, but I don't anymore. So that was a 2.5 for me. And it was a 4 on the spice scale, and it did have dirty talk, breeding, and rough sex. But the trigger warnings for this one were a mean hero. That is now a trigger because I'm going to say it again in another one. There's a mean hero for me. Violence, harm to a child, parental abandonment, mental illness, and suicide attempt. So all that happens. All right, then I read Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner. This was a book recommended by a viewer. I got it in my book recommendation form and I wanted to give it a try. So this was on my TBR for this month to read. The audiobook is on Anyplay, so you could give it a try. And it was very nice. I liked both of the female narrators for this. This is a sapphic romance. It's an age gap and it's a best friend's mom. And I thought that was lots of really cool tropes being set up. So also this author is queer, they, them, and so it also worked for bonus points for my readathons. I was like, perfect. I was wanting to try this and it's worth some extra points. Let's give it a go. And I want to start with a lot of positives because I really did enjoy a good portion of this. Let's be honest, there was some parts that are not so great. I like the setup. It has that classic setup of like there's a one night stand, these two get hot and heavy in the car and have this really great sexual experience together, and then they go their separate ways. The one heroine, Erin, is in town for her daughter's a cappella performance. Her daughter is a freshman in high school, and the other heroine, Cassie, is 21, and she's best friends with the daughter's roommate, and then they all become best friends. So really, like, this daughter, Parker, kind of makes Cassie her best friend too. So then the next morning, Parker asks Cassie to come to breakfast with her and her mom because she's like, it'll be awkward between me and my mom. We haven't seen each other in a while. There's been a divorce in the family in the last couple of years because the mother, it just wasn't working, you know, and both Cassie and Erin are bisexual, by the way. We'll put that out there. So like she'd been married for quite a few years. She's a doctor and it didn't work out with her husband. I'm going to come back to that though because it is one of my few issues with this book. But anyway, so then they see each other at breakfast and they're like, oh my God, you're a MILF. You're a hot MILF who I fucked last night. And then she's like, oh my God, this is my daughter's best friend. This can't happen. So there can't be anything between them, of course. Now, this romance takes place over quite a few months because eventually there is a holiday break and now Cassie doesn't have anyone in her family. And parts of this that I did really love. So the other friend, which I can't remember her name, but she's the one who's the roommate with Parker. Her family have basically like adopted Cassie. And I love that. There were scenes where like for her graduation, like her friends' family are the ones who are there for her. And that got me a lot of points with this book, I'll be honest, because I've shared this multiple times. I have a wonderful relationship with my parents now, but when I was in high school and my early college years, things were not great, and it was my friends' families who welcomed me in, and I still go to Christmas with my friends' families and my own family now because of that. Like, the connection that we have, it's there. And so the way that she was talking about, like, again, I can't remember her name, but like Mama Wolf, are their names? Was the last name Wolf? I don't know, but she calls her Webb. It's Webb. She calls her Mama Webb. And like the dad, when she's graduating, he's like, hey, baby girl. I was like, oh, what's happening? I'm crying because it just gave me that feeling of, oh, your family can be who you choose and not just who you're born to. And that's beautiful. So the found family aspects of this were great. We didn't get a ton of that, but just that vibe of how close that she was with these people, even though she's not with her family. Loved it. But anyway, there's a time where there is a holiday and Parker invites Cassie to come and stay with her for 2 weeks. And that's when the forced proximity really ratchets up because they're in the same home and stuff happens. So anyway, it ends up being this, you know, it's a hidden relationship for 95% of this book, not telling the daughter, slowly people finding out and telling her to tell the daughter and her not doing it and all that stuff. So I won't spoil how it comes out and everything, but I will say my like main issues with this book, which they're mostly preference. I will say I come back to this, like this is, you know, I haven't read a lot of sapphic romance and this just felt like a good romance to me. Like there's a lot of things I like. It's a lot of the side stuff that didn't work for me. Also, like, they have a good sexual connection and they, like, flirt good with each other, but because there's so much, like, distance and so much of their relationship is over text or, like, video chat, like, it was cute. A lot of that was cute, but I didn't feel the intense chemistry that would have them, like, lying about it so much. And I feel like that's more how the author was expressing it than what was happening, because, like, I think they really had a good connection, but, like, I wasn't seeing it on the page, right? And if you're not giving me it, then it's not there. And the thing that came into my mind is that this story, this best friend's mom, is basically the same story as The Quarterback, which is a best friend's dad, which was a gay romance that I read that has, you know, some similar, like, we're connecting more because we're the two that, like, don't have anyone, and so we're talking more and we're connecting. Because there is a part of Mistakes Were Made where Parker has a partner, and so she's not paying as much attention to her mom, and so it leads these two to talk more. But there was just something about how, like, Tal wrote the chemistry and the connection between those two that I just couldn't stop reading it. Now, I did read Mistakes Were Made, like, in a day, but it's because it was on an audiobook and I wasn't doing anything else. Like, there was parts of the book where I wasn't even listening and I didn't miss anything. And then this is the final note, and again, this is a style choice. The author completely has the right to do this, and yeah, that's totally up to them if that's the type of story they want to say. However, in this story, and it's one of the reasons why some sapphic and gay romances, like, I feel like they're not for me, which is totally fine. They don't have to be for me. I just want to try to read diversely and try everything. But this one made me feel that there's only one straight person referenced in this, and it's the ex-husband / dad, and he was given a lot of shit in this. He was given a lot of shit. I kept waiting to see some big thing that he did wrong. Like, did he cheat? Was he emotionally unavailable? What was going on? And I was never given that. In fact, Parker still has a really great relationship with her dad. And when she's home, she equally spends time with her dad and mom. She loves them both. But because the dad had, like, condescending, and I'm saying this because I didn't see the condescension, he condescendingly offers Cassie a reference to help her get into the school she wants, because he says, like, oh, it can be an old boys club and I have some connections, let me help out. The way that Cassie acted, like, he had said she should be in the kitchen, and, like, she didn't say that, but she acted like he was being so chauvinistic and asshole because he offered her a reference because she's his daughter's friend. That set me off. Then, like, there's another point in the story where, like, the dad finds something out and he kind of freaks out a little bit. He doesn't call anyone names or do anything bad. He's just having a moment of being like, what's going on right now? And he's treated like, well, I don't give a fuck what he thinks. Like, we don't care about his opinion, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I don't know. Every instance of the dad, who, again, there was no proof that he's a bad guy. Like, what did he do wrong? Well, to me, it felt like because he's the one straight person in the room. Like, I'm just telling you how it felt to me, that everyone in this book had an identity, had a sexuality, which I've read plenty of those. I don't have a problem with it. But then when the person who has, like, a different sexuality, who's the ex-husband, which, again, based on the evidence provided, I actually think that it was the heroine who, like, caused the divorce to happen because she was unsatisfied, unhappy, which, again, is fine. But she's the one who's a doctor. She was working full-time. She was the one pulling away, and somehow he's villainized as he's a shit straight white guy. And I know some of my viewers, you know what I'm talking about. So it tainted what was a fun story for me, that everyone who is good has an identity that is different from straight. And the only, like, legit, the only straight person in it is shit. And I don't know. There may be something to say in that of, like, turnabout's fair play. That's fine. But it just made it feel off to me. And it was unnecessary. Like, that didn't need to happen. That didn't need to happen, and it would have been, like, a fine story, because, like, you can have, like, you don't have to love your ex-husband anymore, but he was a good dad to Parker and a good, like, support for her, and she still loved her dad. It wasn't tough for her to spend time with him. In fact, it was tough for her to spend time with her mom, and they're, like, both bisexual and have went through that stuff, and she has tough time spending time with her mom, not the dad. So what's wrong with the dad? Like, I don't know. Anyway, I didn't mean to harp on it, but it just felt like a plot hole to me. And I'm like, if you want to make him shit, he needs a reason to be shit. You can't just keep saying, fuck that guy. What did he do wrong besides be straight. Like, what did he do wrong? Besides be a good dad to Parker and be straight and like maybe question why you were fucking your daughter's best friend. Like, he's like, what are you doing? And then he's over it. So anyway, all of that rambling on, I still gave this 3.5 stars. Besides those issues that I had, which again, they're a preference thing. It didn't ruin the story for me. It just made me question it. And the reason I had time to question it is there was a lot of boring pieces in this story. Like, this was a pretty long book and there was so much drawn out. And I think too, having 2 women as the heroines was tough because they both overthought everything. So we have 2 people overthinking all the time. And like, there was nobody who was making like decisive decisions until like the very end of the book. So there was a lot of wordy parts to this where we're just rambling and self-reflecting and doing it. And I was like, can we just do something? Just do something about it already. So yeah, I gave this one 3.5 stars and it was a 3 on the spice scale. And we did get some strap-on action in this. That was mighty good. So this was pretty sexy. It was sweet and I had a fun time with it. And I'll be open to more sapphic romance in the future. I'll read more by this author in the future. They have a like soccer one coming up. That looks kind of cool. So there we go. All right. Then I read an arc of Recollection by Noelle Adams. This is, as I have shared before, Noelle Adams is also Claire Kent. And this is going to be the first in a new series, she said. And in her art group, she said that it's going to be her like wacky series that she has, which made me laugh. So this one has an amnesia trope and like she's planning to do a shipwreck trope, she said, and do like, I think she said maybe like a twins, like switch place. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. But this one has a girl named Scarlett, or a woman named Scarlett, and a man named Arthur. And the book begins in present time with her waking up and she remembers her father dying. She remembers an accident and then she gets told by the doctors that that was actually 6 months ago. So her father and that car accident were 6 months ago. And she had another accident recently where she fell off a ladder in a library and lost her memory. Hold on. Talking too much this morning. And she doesn't remember the last 6 months. And so she doesn't remember that after her father died, she ended up working for Arthur and working in his library. And she's like cataloging and organizing stuff there for him. And she doesn't remember the romance that they have. And Arthur, who since the beginning of their relationship was feeling very like guilty about, because he's in his late 40s, she's in her I think mid 20s, so it's a 20+ year age gap, and he was always very hesitant for their relationship anyway, even though he was very into her. Like all of Claire Kent's heroes, and Noelle Adams, if you've read her, you know her heroes are so gone for the heroines, usually miles ahead of the heroine. The men are into them, but they're always very reserved and very self-sacrificing men. That is her pattern, and this hero definitely is that as well. And so when she doesn't remember their love, he decides to just go with it. Also, there is the doctor saying, like, don't try to force your memories. So he doesn't want to make her remember, but he also is like, well, if she doesn't remember me, then she won't be trapped here with me. Because that's what he's afraid of, is that she's going to be trapped with him. He's also a scarred recluse as well. Just all of these things. He's a beast with a library, as it were. But as she's there and as she's starting to, like, pick back up her work and get into things, she starts to have these flashbacks of them touching and kissing and eventually making love. And so she starts to remember. And that's what this story is about, Recollection. So it's only like 210 pages, is a quick one. And I have to say that this one, compared to the amnesia story I read last week, which was the Stacey Reed, this one was, I mean, not to say it's necessarily more believable because it is still amnesia romance, but it doesn't have some of the wacky, crazy levels to it. So I gave this one 4 stars. It's a 2.5 on the spice scale. It did have a little bit of domination in there. The heroine needs a little extra bossing around to be able to get there. And something else that like Noelle Adams puts into a lot of her books is a lot of instruction, and sometimes sex not being perfect the first time and us needing to communicate and adjust things. Like, oh, her sex, like, all the sex scenes I've read by this author at this point, they are all so well articulated and just feel so real. They feel so real because things are imperfect and sometimes a little bit messy, and just discussions we have to have. Like, she does it in this awkward, real way that's still very sexy, and I love it. And then there's a trigger warning for death of a parent, because that happens. All right, then I read Soul of a Witch by Harley Lavergne. It will be out on the 31st of the month. So this is the third book in the Souls trilogy, and we've been waiting a long time for this. So Harley Lavergne pushed this book back. She did put out the Losers duet first. She just needed some time, and so I've been patiently waiting, and I'm really happy that it's finally here. And I gotta tell you, this is probably my favorite in the series. Okay, I said this is probably. It's been a while since I read the first two, and I do really want to reread them, because something that's interesting about this. So this is about Everly Laverne, who, if you've read the other two books, she is a part of the family that is the cult that is trying to raise the god, the old god or whatever, from hell, and like have him like take over. And to do this, they need to do sacrifices and rituals. And so in previous books, we've seen them, and we've even seen Everly like reluctantly be a part of some of this. And it put both Juniper and Raylan in dangerous positions before. And so we actually see some like backtracking of like how Everly was like forced to be involved and what she's thinking when it happened and what's going on with her. And we see interactions with the other like demon who become their mates and stuff like that. So I really want to reread the other two, because I want to remember when we interacted with them in those books. Particularly like with Leon, because Leon, who is the demon from the first one, he was that family's like demon. They were able to control him because they had his name. It was called a sigil, but basically they, you know, it's the type of thing of like they knew his true name, they owned it, and so they could control him and make him do what they want. And there's this like grimoire that lets them be able to do all these things and control all of it. And there is a lot of secrets that are getting revealed in this about Everly and where she really comes from. And, you know, Everly's mother is actually gone, and she was a very powerful witch. Her family line is very powerful. Her father currently has like a new wife. There's a stepmother and like other children and stuff like that. But Everly has really been being repressed, and she doesn't even know how much she's been repressed. Now, there is this certain prince of hell whose name is Callum, who has been waiting for Everly for 2,000 years. And this book actually starts with a prologue of Callum in hell, and he has a vision of a woman named Everly saying, "Help me." And that's all we see. So we don't know that. But when we get our first chapter from Callum in the present time, we know that he has been waiting for Everly because he's her guardian. He's supposed to protect her. And he has wings and claws and monster anatomy. Like, he's like full monster self, and he's been waiting for her. And once he's finally able to get a hold of her and start guarding her, she starts learning the truth of her heritage and who she really is and what role she's meant to play in what's going on. So I don't want to say more than that about the story part of it, but I will say, no, you can't start with this book, because people ask this stuff. This is really truly like a trilogy. It's not just interconnected standalone. I don't even remember what her notes say, like if you could start with this one, but I don't think so. I do not say that you can, because you really need to see what's been happening and understand what her family's been doing and where this stuff is going. You can't just jump into this one. You really got to read these books in order. So with that being said, if it's been as long for you as it has for me, I say do a rebrowse through the first two if you can. Harley does do a good job of when we retread those things through Everly's point of view. It made me remember, but I'm not bragging, but I do have a pretty good memory for books that I've read, even though I've read thousands since I've started YouTube. People always want, like, I do have a pretty good memory for this stuff. So when I started reading this arc, because I didn't have time to reread those books, stuff came back to me. But I do suggest, if you have a bad memory for books, you might want to reread those. Or, you know, let me recommend these to you. I think this would be a great trilogy to read in October. Again, the live show that I was on last night, or not on it, I was listening to it. We were talking about horror recommendations, and the Souls trilogy does have a lot of horror elements. There's body horror, there's scary stuff, there's demons, there's possession, and like stuff like that. So there definitely are some horror elements to the series, and there were some things that were pretty intense. Also some really great spice. So let's shift into that. I mean, oh my gosh, the second book in the trilogy had some of my favorite spice, and then this one has some super unique stuff. So there is like piercing that happens in this. That happened in one of the earlier ones. I love it so much because it has to do with claiming. Like you claim by giving them a wound like with a piercing through it. And so that happens in this one. They mutually pierce each other, which is hot. There's also, they are switches in this. Like that also happens in book 2, which I really loved, that the heroine like did stuff to the hero. And in this one, there's a strap-on used on the hero. There is knife play and blood play. There's shirabi. The hero can magically create ropes around her. So there are some really great like shirabi scenes in here with his magical ropes. And there's also orgasm denial and some type of like branding kind of that happens. It's magical, but it's interesting. Then trigger warnings, like a lot of those things I just said as sexy content are also trigger warnings if you don't like them. Oh, there was lots of biting too. He liked to bite her a lot. It was hot. There is some recreational drug use. It was very briefly done in like a demon realm, but I don't always love drug use, but it was okay in this one. Death of a parent, torture, horror, and like some horror elements, and also like abuse by family members because this cult is crazy. So I gave it 5 stars. It wasn't quite a 6-star because it is a pretty like messy story, and I might have felt different if I had reread it because I don't know how well it buttons everything up, but it was done pretty damn well. We'll say it's done pretty damn well. So this is a 5-star read, and it is a 5 on the spice scale. Absolutely, positively a 5 on the... All right. The final book that was a reread was The Anti-Hero by Sarah Kate, so I don't have too much to say about this. I just reviewed this. Did this come in July or June? I don't know. I just reviewed this one, but I reread this one for Patreon as well. Gave it still the 4 stars. It's a 3.5 on the spice scale, and this has like really sexy content in it. There's BDSM, impact play, voyeurism, a little bit of spitting, forgot about that, and degradation is kind of the big one in this one. So loved revisiting this book for sure. So let's wrap this up. I read way less books than the last weekend. I still talked for so long because I had some rants to get through. But thank you so much for watching. Again, thank you so much for supporting. If you're interested in helping keep the channel going, it can be as simple as you liking this video and commenting. Maybe give me some sunflowers down below since we're at the very end of summer. Because that stuff all does help in the algorithm. It really, really does. I hate being that person, but I have to because this is my job. It's my career. And if you would like to go a step further, you could check out my Etsy shop to support me that way, or check out Patreon or channel memberships to monthly be giving support to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I appreciate you so much, and happy reading. Bye.